So yesterday was the big voting day, and I'm just so glad to see that a lot of Wyandotte County went out and hit those polls and voted. I run into a lot of people that say that their vote don't make a difference, and I think
Hi.
I think we showed yesterday for Wyandotte County that when we want change and when we want things to happen, we will show up. So I think what the message that I want to push is that now is not the time to get complacent. Not the time to get slow down. This is the time to rev things up. I mean, we are just getting started. So um, this is the importance of involving the community in everything that we do. And I'm excited about what's to come and what we have going on. I'm gonna check in with a couple of you guys before we get started. Dr. Evelyn, do you all have any updates from the task force or anything? I'm sure you all will be meeting to regroup after yesterday.
Well, hello. Thank you for asking. There is an update. It's August the 11th is the next meeting that we will have on the UG channel. And I think we're going to have the Baptist Ministerial Union and other concerned clergy. They have some information that they want to share, lots of questions, and so it should be pretty engaging. And I think it'll be better for the community than to continue to just hear what the police department is doing. So I think it'll be more folks from the community involved, starting with the mayor. The Baptist ministers. And then secondly, we did mention Live and Thrive and several other organizations in the community for different platforms to have the mayor's community task force with the police. Because our question was because there was such a low amount of input or no input really from the community, we did have 2 or 3 that did write in, but our concern was if people are not comfortable with this platform, maybe we should switch to another or several other platforms throughout the city, including Livable Neighborhoods and several other ones popped up. So we did recommend Live and Thrive and Dr. Jamila's Thrive also. They seem to have a much better response from the community. And the mayor was very open. So like I said, the 11th at 4 o'clock, which is next Tuesday, we'll have that next meeting, and please join us. Thank you.
Thank you. That task force it does provide a lot of information. So I encourage those of us who can make it to be a part of that. Let's be a part of that, at least so we know what's going on. I will say, I was wondering what the community response is going to be because there needs to be trust built between the mayor, task force, and the community. Um, so, especially when it comes to reporting police, people's involvement with the system, just to be sure that they don't become a target after they report their involvement. So, just being able to provide that trauma lens, that's why Dr. Evan, I'm so grateful that you're part of that because I know that you're able to bring that trauma lens piece into that. But yeah, we could definitely discuss how that works with Alive and Thrive. I would want us, those who attend and are a big part of this, to discuss what that would look like as well, because I wouldn't want anyone to feel uncomfortable or feel like they can't say what they want to say on that platform. So when we nail down more information about that, we can bring that to the table. Thank you for that update so much. Anyone else have any updates from their organizations or anything that's going on before we move forward? Okay. Do want to say we did the push for the vote. That's not over. We still have November coming up. So we need to do a push on census and completing the census in Wyandotte County, because like I always say, I don't want it to look like just 10 people live here, because then we'll only get funding for 10 people and everybody else won't eat. So we need to make sure that we're pushing that coming up. They've actually shortened the time frame for the census response a whole month. So that doesn't leave us a lot of time. I think it's over at the end of September now. So you'll start seeing us pushing that a little bit more. We have been doing a lot of policy work. Well, before I get to that, let me talk about our strategic planning. We're coming up on a strategic planning meeting with the Allow to Drive Steering Committee. And as I've said, we don't work unless the community works with us, has to be part of us. So I always want to make sure that whatever level we have going on, that the community has input on that. I will be letting you all know when we're having our strategic planning meeting with our steering committee, because I would love to have your voices in the room. We have a lot of different things going on with Allow to Drive, from education and the government on trauma. We have another facilitation training coming up, where we're training some more trainers to be in the community in a couple of months. And we have the policy piece that's going on. We have some other pieces that are going on that we really want to inform everyone about, and we want everyone to be aware of. I don't want to move forward without the community voice and the community buy-in. So we will be letting you know when that happens, so that you all can fit in and be a part of that as well. Also, with this particular thing that we've been doing, the community engagement, we have a few people who have been meeting to get some of the details together, bring the voices in the room, put it on paper for us as we've emailed out to you all the draft of what we're working on, so that we can all understand what we're talking about and where we're coming from. If you did not get that, please put your email in the chat, and Mark will send you the paper we're going to be working off of this week, the updated paper. I sent it out to everyone Monday. What day did I send it out, Mark? I think it was Monday that I sent it out to everybody.
Yeah, it was I believe it was Monday. And so if you received that email with the Alive and Thrive, it would be labeled ATTI Policy Approach 8420. So that's the document she sent out. And if you did not get it, go ahead and put your email in the chat, and I have this thing queued up on my email to send to whoever needs it.
We tried to discuss it a little bit last week, but I was late sending it out, so I will take full responsibility for that. But we wanted everyone to have time to kind of look over that and see what it is, and so that we can talk about what this document will look like going forward, what the timeline is that our committee has come up with. And I also want to put the ask out to everyone, if you want to be part of the planning committee for the policy that is going on, please let us know. Right now, we have Mark, we have Diane, Chiquita, Kathleen. They're really putting in a lot of work, especially when you look at the document that you have and putting together what we're talking about in these groups. So if you want to be a part of that, we need leadership, we need community leadership. For those of you who are working with the community in your different organizations, please encourage the people that you serve to be part of these meetings, so that we can make sure we're getting more community information. I know that there are people who want to be part of these meetings that are not able to be part of these meetings, so we will be uploading. We're creating a Allow to Thrive YouTube channel that we will put a link to on our website here in a couple of weeks. They're editing our videos, making them all nice and pretty. So when I mess up all Zoom meetings and everything. It goes seamlessly on the videos, and it'll be nice and cute for everybody. So we have people working on that, and I'm hoping that in the next couple of weeks we'll have that up. So even though sometimes we may not have that many people online, I do get emails, I do get messages of those who are participating in the background and want to know and want to be part of this work. So I'm excited about that. Again, share this information, this date, this meeting, as many people as you possibly can. So as we saw yesterday, there is strength in numbers, and we need the numbers. We need the people in the community. We need the voice. Okay. So with that, today, like I said, we're going over this document. Mark, there are a couple of people in the chat. Did you get those sent to them?
So I just emailed to Donald and Brenda.
Okay.
So if you all don't get it soon, just say something in the chat and I'll try it again. But I did just send it to you. Does this? I'm assuming then that everybody else has the document, and the reason that's important is because we're going to ask you all to read it. We're going to take some time to read it.
We're going to give you time in case you haven't had time. Because if your life is anything like mine, sometimes you just don't get to read all the documents, right? So I am going to actually let Kathleen will join us in a few minutes. But Mark, Kathleen, Chiquita, Diane, that team take over the rest of this meeting and go over what they came up with, how they put together the language of what we've been talking about. And everyone else, please feel free to chime in and ask questions. You all have been here. I think we pretty much have a lot of people who've been here for most of this process. So if we're missing anything, let us know. If there's something that needs to be added to this, let us know. And we're gonna move forward. I'm excited. Oh, and while I have your attention, I'm talking now because I won't talk too much in a minute. But while I have you all's attention, next week we have a guest who will join us from the Vera Institute of Justice out of New York to go over some of what they want to do with us in Wyandotte County. I was able to have a conversation with them, and I heard what they had to say. And I said, I think you should probably talk to the community about that before you start trying to do all these different things and getting all this information. So, yeah, I know I'm protective of what happens with our community and what they bring into our community. So, I told them to come hear your voice. So that's what we're gonna do for some of the meeting next week, and I just wanted you to be prepared for that. Okay, I am quiet now. I'm giving it to you, Mark, and the other guys.
Okay. Hey, hi everybody. Thanks for being here. And I always have to start out by apologizing that my face is not on this screen. My camera doesn't work, so I'm just the way it is. But what we are going to do for most of the rest of this meeting is see if we can have a discussion about this document, because we think it's really important that for those of you who've been attending and kind of giving your ideas and thoughts about what what it would look like for Alive and Thrive to tackle this important work of advocating for trauma-informed policies, what that looks like. And you all participated in some of those discussions, so we want to make sure that we're capturing a lot of what you all had mentioned. Of course, this document goes probably a little further beyond what some people said. But as we got talking about it, and by we, I mean largely myself and Chiquita and Diane and Kathleen, the four of us worked on this document over the last couple of weeks. And so it's gone through several revisions. We feel like it's getting very close to being completed, but before we really put the stamp on it and say it's done, we want more feedback from you all. So what we're going to do is have you take about 15 minutes to read this, and as you read it, just keep in mind three things, three questions that we'll be asking. We want to know where we're on target, what really works for you in this document, if there's anything missing from it that you think we didn't capture, either based on our previous discussions or just, your feelings about how policy should work. And then is there anything, any just specific edits that you might, if you catch anything, that sounds awkward or that doesn't quite make sense, or you'd like some clarification on. So that's what we're looking for from you. I'm not going to review the document until after you're done reading it. I'm in any great detail, but I do want to just point out that it is broken down into several sections. We have a purpose statement at the top. And then I do want to say a couple things about the vision section underneath here. We thought it would be best to kind of, at the beginning at least, make our vision something that's achievable. And I think this vision of asking all local, state, and federal governing institutions to consider the following trauma-informed principles when reviewing their public policies. It's actually, we think it's doable, but it's also pretty high up there too. I mean, it's going to be a challenge to get everybody to look at this. And we wanted to keep those principles pretty straightforward, simple, and limited. We didn't want to overwhelm policymakers with, 10, 15, 20 different principles. So we kept it to 5. We put it in the format of questions. And we also, even though we're using the SAMHSA principles as a guide, that their language isn't necessarily in here. We took out some of the jargon and tried to make this reader friendly for policymakers who don't, we're assuming they don't know anything about trauma, even though they might, but we have to assume that a lot of people just haven't been exposed to these principles and concepts before. So that's the vision. And then after that, I won't talk about any of these other things, but it's the nuts and bolts of how the policy committee would work, the schedule for meetings, and then finally at the end we have some outcomes. So that's the gist of what you'll be looking at. And again, if you could read that, Kathleen will be helping out with this. So Kathleen, jump in anytime you feel like it, but I thought it might work or help if we had it on the screen. Or did you guys decide not to do it? I mean, whichever.
I'm going to bring it up if that's okay.
Yeah. And what I think we could do is just start by looking at this by section, and I'll just remember the 3 questions we were looking for. What in this works for you? What is it that you think is missing from it, and then any edits or things that you would like to see addressed, either because there's a misspelling or anything, or if there's something that just it's not clear, something that we could work on in terms of clarity. So I thought I'd start with a purpose statement, and this purpose statement is directed toward the document itself. We wanted to make sure people knew exactly why we are doing this. And I think the big takeaway from it for me is that we want this to be a document that guides Alive and Thrive's policy work in such a way that reflects Alive and Thrive's value of engaging the people most affected by these policies. So do you think that is captured there? Do you have any suggestions about how we might better do that, or any edits from this?
We did have a comment from Ms. Bella before she got off in the chat that said, the example that we have there of DCF, of what happened.
I'm sorry, the what?
What happened between DCF and Avenue of Life.
I didn't see that. It's in the comment?
It's in the comment. I can help with the comment piece. You worry about that. But
okay.
But her comment was basically about, is there a way that we can broadly share these successes? So when we do have, even if it's between organization to organization, when we have moments where we've been able to affect policy change or affect how we all do something, how, is there a way that we're planning on sharing that?
I think it's an excellent idea, and I think what we ought to do is build that into the process below.
I do too. I'm thinking
And
about
so if we go down to
probably the task force.
that, probably the policy task force would be responsible for that. So to broadly just, I mean, for now at least, if we can.
So providing a place to share
Success story.
success stories
Um,
relative to trauma-informed policy.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that.
Changes. Do you want me to put everything in bold mark that changes, or you want me to track changes?
I think if you put it in bold, that'd be good.
All right. Anything else on? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
Mark.
Yeah. Well, go ahead. No. Anything on on the purpose statement? Excuse me. Was it clear for everybody? My challenge with Zoom, you know, if you're in a regular meeting, people will nod their heads, but I can't, for some reason, on this right now, see everybody. So we'll just give you a second to say something if
Brenda has her hand up.
Great. Brenda.
Sorry, you know, I always have to put my 2 cents in.
No, we want your 2 cents.
Well, no, just on the same area that we are talking about when we're talking about in X, the whole sentence, like, it reads kind of long.
Where are
So
you
I don't know
with-
if we need to, like, where it's like, notice that many people Avenue of Life serves were experiencing long waiting times for several times the Department of Children and Families. Like, it's a long sentence. So I don't know if we need just like a breaking word or a comma or something, just kind of breaking it a little, because it reads kind of, for instance, it breaks halfway. When you're kind of following around along with it, it's kind of like hard to read. The other thing is on the bottom, just below that, where it's like vision. I don't know if we need to, because he reads kind of funky. So I don't know if we need to have the statement first, and then where it's drawn from. I don't know, or
put this
just
at the
even,
bottom.
or even move it down. But the way that my screen shows, like, it breaks it. So it's kind of looks like there's something they're missing.
yeah, that's a good idea, just to put that at the bottom.
Okay. I like that too. Okay.
And where he's talking, like, same area, just going down a little bit, when we're talking about others who occupy powerful positions, I'm wondering if it would sound better to say decision-making positions, because a lot of them may not consider their position to be powerful, but it is a decision-making position. You know, because many of them think like, oh, I have to be the mayor, or I have to be an elected official, not thinking themselves as an administrator having that power.
What
Which
is-
section are you in, Brenda? Do you know where?
That's still vision. That's at the top
Yeah.
above the questions.
Okay.
What if we said powerful positions at public institutions? I mean that's getting it a little bit longer, but the idea we had here.
Right. I get the point, but I'm just kind of thinking, you know, basic language. Like, if I was a stranger reading this, where my mind would go.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good.
That's it. Everything else looks great. I think you guys did a great job with the language in opening, kind of for expenditure if needed to be, you know, just kind of leaving some things broad enough to where it could be done in different ways, and accommodates everybody. I want to, you know, say kudos to everybody who spent time on this. It's pretty good.
Oh, great. Well, thank you, Brenda. Appreciate that. I think when, as you were talking, I was and speaking about language and keeping it at a level where it's open to everybody. I mean, I realize that one thing we probably ought to aim for is at least translating this document into Spanish. I don't know if we have the resources to do very many other languages, but that would be something that we probably ought to contemplate, Chan, if that's possible.
Yeah, Kathleen, do you have that in your notes?
I'll just put that, what if I just put that right here at the top?
I can do it if you guys send me the final.
Oh,
Yeah, I translate legal documents all the time, so
wow.
no problems.
Done.
That would be great. I was not angling for that.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean,
I'm glad I
that's-
mentioned it in front of you.
Yeah, I mean, that's something God blessed me with, and I mean, I'm always willing to share. So, yeah, once we have it finalized, just send it to me.
Okay, great.
Awesome. Thank you, Brenda.
No problem.
I will say I do agree that when we do say positions of power, that might not be clearly defined for
Yeah.
For our community, because a lot of times, even when we have the whole discussion of privilege, everybody doesn't realize that they have privilege. So everybody may not realize the power that their position carries. So if you say a decision-making position, I like that language.
Okay, maybe, so in others who occupy decision-making positions.
Well, in there, I think we, not to keep splitting hairs indefinitely, but decision-making positions where, because I mean, there are plenty of private institutions, where the decisions they make are important, but I guess that's why I wanted to say something about public. All local, state, and federal governing institutions will consider the following. Maybe occupy decision-making positions at these institutions instead of in our community.
Well, let's talk about that, because my question would be, are we how far of a reach do we want these tactics, these thoughts, this behavior? How far of a reach do we want to have into the community? So when we say decision-making decisions, if it's not just say it's not a person in the state or federal governing institution, but they have an organization or a nonprofit that they're trying to build, and they want to use these policies for that, will we still want them to feel like they can be included in this document or in what we're doing?
I think if we're talking, I mean, let me see if I understand what you're saying first. But when you talk about others at like nonprofit organizations, are you talking about them having a voice at our policy table?
No, I'm saying anybody who has anything to do with setting things in order in their organization, whether they fall under these categories or not.
Mm-hmm.
But if they are in Wyandotte County and they have employees and they have to set policies and procedures in effect, do we want? I don't want to exclude them
right
from this document.
I don't know, because I think that might fall into the other side of what Alive and Thrive does when it wants to. I mean, we talk about promoting trauma-informed practices at other organizations and how we go about doing that. That's a little different than the policy work, because policy, where people can really have an effect is in the public realm, because these public institutions must answer to the voters, basically.
Well, yeah, but I don't want it just to be like, if just because you affect the voters, then that's all that matters. Anybody who has any kind of business or organization or any type of anything in Wyandotte County affects the people of Wyandotte County, affects the community.
Right. So, well,
I would like for this to cover everybody, even whether we
Yeah.
feel like it has affects policy on a larger level, or even if it's just two people working at their new business and they live in Wyandotte County. I would like to see this effect opened up to everybody, because policy is everywhere.
Well, I think I like where you're going. I just don't know how to really
So let's think about the language for that.
engage that part. But I just real quick, one example, maybe this, I mean, like if you're looking at an institution like the one we are working for, Wyandotte Behavioral Health, very large nonprofit organization that touches, several thousand lives in Wyandotte County. And how it goes about its business, it should be something of interest to the public. They also receive public dollars in order to do their work, and yet there's no formal process by which, I mean, they solicit the public comment, and they want people to and consumers and everybody to weigh in on what they do, but there is no real formal process outside of, say, if somebody wanted to show up at the unified government and say, give Wyandotte more money to do its work, or restrict their money until they do X, Y, and Z. So there are ways for some institutions to answer to the public, assuming they're receiving public dollars. But it's not the same as, say, going to a unified government commissioner and saying, I want a different policy, regarding how the police work or something like that. But I think there's a way to probably address that. I don't know. So maybe if we just mark it and.
Yep.
Now let's mark it and come to it. But I will say this: for this piece, we're talking about just basically what to consider when creating policy, right? So
Right, and I think that's your point, Chandler. It can be whenever. It could be if you're sitting in a nonprofit organization that has a food bank and you're setting some policies with regard to hours, and you didn't take time to find out that every food bank in our community is open Tuesday, Thursday, nobody's open Wednesday and Friday. That right there is traumatizing for our community because you didn't do that bit of research. You didn't ask. I mean, like it can almost be to that. I think that's where I hear us fighting for inclusion, even at that, like at that level.
That is the word I was just getting ready to say. I want this part to be inclusive with our community, understanding that we're doing specific policy work with other people, but for this particular part, our vision, anybody who's putting together any type of policy should be able to look at this and say, hey, do I meet this? Even if it's just for me in my organization, or my little self want to do a little business or something, I should be able to make sure I'm taking care of me and making sure I'm good and trauma informed for myself. So I would like to see that language a little bit more general. Brenda, do you have your hand up? Or is that up from last time?
Well, I was just going to say that making it that way, it would open even for the faith-based community, because, if we're talking about this is something that's going to reach out, with police work and things like that. I mean, for a lot of our communities, especially for minorities, church is our sanctuary. And a lot of them do serve as a sanctuary, as a barrier and protector, especially for immigrants and refugees. That pastor is not necessarily a powerful position, but it is a decision-making position in the church to establish whether they're going to be open-handed, and open arms to that individual that may be needing that extra help, advocating for themselves. Even just being able to go and visit somebody in jail and find out what's going on with that individual. So I do like that we're having this discussion, because it does open up to just more than those in government.
Well, and sorry, just to interject something quickly. I need to leave in about 10 minutes. I do think that our language can certainly be adjusted so that it's more inclusive. I agree that, I think there was a statement made earlier that we don't always have a voice in what happens in nonprofits or or churches, etc., businesses, but we do because we vote other ways. We vote with our feet. We let our pastors know if there's something that's not going that we don't like. We also some groups have formal consumer advisory groups. I know the Mental Health Center has consumer advisory groups all over the place. I think people do let their voice be heard, but usually it's the squeaky wheel, right? It's not the person who's afraid to speak up or who doesn't normally speak up. So I think that's the group that we're looking at. How do we gather those comments and that input? Anyway, I just had to interject something quickly.
Yeah, I think it fits nicely with that idea of, I always think about people lead where you are, and we're asking every individual in the community to lead where they are and to ask these questions. So whether it's, a little P policy or a giant P policy, we're asking, lead where you are and think about these questions and step back and audit yourself and audit your team and audit your department and audit your organization. Lead wherever you are in raising these questions. I love this push, and it's not where I was in the realm on the writing team that, we were more big P policy, and you all are really, and our example really with DCF is kind of, more local too, now that I think about it. It wasn't giant policy, it was, policy and practice.
Well, I'm gonna one caution I'll have about opening it up too broadly would be that we would need to. I don't think we should exclude this, but I also think I would argue or push for making sure our priority is still largely focused on public policy, and the reason is I think those policies have a broader, have the potential to have a broader effect on the public. And whereas if you're talking about Wyandotte, say, they're a large organization, but they still are not, and even though they serve everybody, the mechanisms by which they're able to serve everybody, say you want to increase their capacity or something to serve, that becomes kind of a public policy because you're going to talk about increasing mental health funding, basically. There's other ways to do it. But if you're going into, smaller organizations, some places, mom and pop nonprofits that serve the poor, they really are limited by their capacity, and some may have rules and procedures that are governed by personal values and it fits for them and their constituency, but maybe not, maybe it's not for everybody. So I don't know. I think we should definitely be keeping an eye on that and thinking about it, but I'd still think that the vast majority of the work that we would be doing through this would be largely focused on the public policies. That's my.
So let me add this, and I thank everyone for this. This is great conversation. This is why we need to do this, and this is the purpose of this. I agree that the focus of what we're doing needs to be on public policy. But I also think that there are parts of this that can be more inclusive of the community as a whole. And I will say this, and then I'll let the group that is working on this document discuss the language and the verbiage and how this should go in you guys' next meeting. But from where I sit and what I transpire, I think that this piece of the document can have inclusive language. And I think the document as a whole can focus on the public policy pieces that we're discussing, if that makes sense when I say that. Any questions for those of you who are working on the document?
I think it makes sense.
Okay.
Jen, I could not hear that last part. I'm sorry. I hate to ask you to repeat.
I said I think that this piece of the document can be inclusive and just kind of use, so anybody in the community can use this piece as a reference, but the document as a whole can be used for the public policy purposes that we're doing. so that we can have that focus as we move forward. Not changing our focus of who we are, but there are pieces of this that can be used throughout the community that we want to make available for that.
Thank
I
you.
think that'll be great, you know.
I agree. I think it fits very nice with our vision of what if every organization, what if every individual in our community always asks the question of what happened versus what's wrong with you. And I think what we're visioning here is, what if every individual and organization, whatever you're in, asks these 5 questions about policy. So we're just trying to change the set of questions throughout the community.
Mhm.
I love this section as that focus, but then I do hear what we're saying. Overall, the action teams are very interested in public policy, influencing public
And if
policy.
I can kind of give a hierarchy of it, Alive and Thrive itself, one of our main goals is to educate the whole community on how to be trauma informed. And so even though this piece right here focuses on public policy, we can't forget that if there are pieces of this that our whole community can use, let's pull those out, let's use those, because we'll be able to use those in other areas, in other trainings that we're doing. So yes, the focus of this group is still that, but there are pieces that we can contribute throughout the community. So I'm going to hand that part to the group, and I don't want to spend the whole time on this one section. But are there other comments and questions on that before Mark and the team move ahead? Dr. Evelyn, do you have something?
This document that you all just altered a little bit, I thought it was really good. But what I'm asking these questions, I think it's really imperative.
So Dr. Evelyn, I don't know if you can hear what I'm saying, but we want to hear everything you have to say, everything. So, but you're breaking up really, really bad. So can you put what you're saying in the chat, and then I'll read it from there? Okay, so I think she's typing. Oh, she went. So she may go away and come back. So in the meantime, while we're waiting on her, Mark, do we have any other comments on, I call her Mama Pam, so this is what I'm gonna call her. I know you joined us kind of late. Did you get the document that we are working off of? Mark, what's the title that I sent out?
I'm sorry, what?
What's the title of the document that I sent out for everybody? Yeah, this is why you have to have a team, because you forget.
There were 2 people who requested it, and I sent that, but I haven't.
Had a couple of people come on since then.
Yeah. If anybody who's new on here, who came in late, and wants this document so you can see the whole thing for yourself and read over it, just put your email in the chat and I'll send it to you.
Thank you. Dr. Evelyn, can we hear you now, or are you able to type in? You're on mute. Are you typing it in the chat?
Yeah, I'm just going to type it and you'll see it. Okay.
Cool. Okay. Cool. Thank you. Okay. Any other comments on this piece? I'm so quiet, aren't I? Let me hand this over to Mark. Go ahead, Mark.
Okay. So and if you do have stuff you want to say that, if you want to put in the chat, you're more comfortable with that, feel free to do that. The policy task force section of this lays out what the task force will do. And does anybody have any comments about these bullets? I mean, does it make sense? Is there something glaringly missing or not glaringly missing, if you just think there's something that the task force should do? And again, the idea here is to have a policy task force that will meet 4 times a month, and it will be comprised of
A month or a year?
4 times a year. Yes, we're going to meet once a week, 52 times a year. Thank you, Chan. But anyway, we'll meet 4 times a year, the policy task force will, and then there will be policy action teams that cover these 4 areas of interest. And those policy action teams will have co-chairs. The idea was we wanted somebody who has the grass tops experience with an organization in these areas of interest. And then we also want someone who's affected by this on the ground, a more of a grassroots person. So they would become co-chairs of these policy action teams and would also serve on the policy task force. So, and then the bullets describe all the different things that the task force would be responsible for. Is this making sense to people?
Yeah, Mark, can you take a second, and there is an email in the chat to shoot it over?
Yeah, I'm going to do that.
Okay. While he's doing that, I want to say, for chair and co-chairs, if you all, I know that both the people on here, we're in the community all the time and already doing a lot of things. Please feel free to suggest people who you think may be interested in being part of this policy task force. And like Mark said, cannot reiterate enough how much we want to make sure that we have community members who maybe aren't so close to the work all the time to be a part of this task force, so that we make sure that we're getting that voice. So feel free to send recommendations.
So any comments or edits, anything else as you thought about the role of the policy action team? And then we'll jump to a little bit more about timeline. That's, I think, kind of our sections here, as well as quarterly goals for PAT. So maybe just as anything there that you wanted to see changed, or anything missing or seem kind of positioned not quite right? Okay. And then these last 2 sections were quarterly goals for the PATs. We were trying to give the policy action teams a rough idea of, getting their chairs and teams in place at by the end of this year, and then starting the research for policies, maybe even looking for quick victories, those things that we could just maybe move into action quickly. Your organization could change this, or we all got together and 3 of us decided, we go look at this and we're able to, if there may be some things that we can move quick on. And that really, that's January through June. As you get ready then in July, September to get consensus on your policies that will be presented to the policy task force in October. And then finally, the outcomes. I think Mark and I, we kind of brainstormed these a little quickly yesterday, but wanted to start to begin to think about measurements.
Yeah, this would be a place where if you have any thoughts about other outcomes, please share those with us. We kind of like Kathleen said, just put these together based on what we had written, but I'm sure there's more that we could do. We wanted to keep them measurable, so we have those numbers in there.
Chandra, we have Evelyn's comment that just came in. Hello, the vision is extremely good with questions to consider. For instance, BPU is not known for being trauma-informed on the front lines. The policymakers are often not the ones who work with the public. This document would recommend training and activities that would activate trauma-sensitive behavior. Yeah. Go ahead, Mark.
Go ahead. Well, no, I think that's an excellent example of something that this group could do. I mean, if we can identify a specific institution that serves the whole public and really dive into it and try to find those things that they're doing that are not quote unquote trauma informed, and then some bring it to the attention of that institution, that I think that can be a very powerful thing.
Yep. And it does dovetail nicely. That's, Evelyn, to your point, with the other strategy of Alive and Thrive, which is the education of the community and education of organizations about what is trauma sensitive. What does that look like? And so I wonder if we need to put a sentence up in vision, up in, what the task force is doing, or up in our vision, Mark. I'm just talking out loud here. Maybe that's part of policy task force. Perhaps it is a linkage to the Live and Thrive education effort. It makes recommendations to organizations that we might reach out to. I'm just thinking out loud as I read Evelyn's comment.
Yeah, I think that works.
So maybe I identify or recommend organizations for Alive and Thrive to reach out to in order, you'll make this sound better, in order to provide trauma-informed education.
Or
And
consulting, because, in some cases, it may be that the organization just wants someone to consult and look over their policies and just say, hey, this works, this doesn't work, this might work, this might not work. So we can open it up for that too.
Chandra, I missed some of that. It was really soft.
I said, or consulting, for consulting purposes, to just look at their policies and to say what works, what doesn't work. If they want to, we could probably offer them as well if it's hard to get everybody in the one room for training.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, no, and I love that because it hits the sustainability planning for the steering committee, Chandra.
And the
Goes
strategic
right in
planning.
there. Okay. All right. Anything else? Thank you for that, Evelyn, for hanging in there. We needed that feedback. Anything else on the policy task force or the policy action teams? And outcomes. Okay, sounds like we're pretty close, and that the writing team can reconvene, kind of make these tweaks, or Mark, you often just take the lead and send over to us and we'll look at it. If you want it, we can do it that way too.
Yeah. If you send me these edits, and then I'll just work them in.
Okay.
I want to ask, does everybody understand the timeline that was put in there? Any suggestions for that timeline for those who? Are able to see it?
2021, there we go.
Because we kind of reached all the way out through 2022 on this timeline. So, and again, this is with understanding that policy work takes time. So although we'll have victories throughout this time, I just want to make sure everybody understands what this looks like and what the vision behind this is.
I do want to point something out real quick on, well, there's two things I want to say. The first one, if you scroll down to the outcomes, something that I hope everybody caught, especially those who have seen this document before, because I threw this in there just as a wild idea. And it's the second to last bullet: recruit and train 20 grassroots advocates. And then it says contingent on staffing. I've been part of organizations before that have done pretty extensive, in-depth training, advocacy training for people. And often this is a pretty important component of really tapping your grassroots support, because a lot of folks may want to get involved, but they just don't know exactly what to do, how to say it, how to share their story, what, how to put a letter together for a policymaker, an elected official, and I think that if the challenge with this is Live and Thrive does a lot of different trainings, and you're already at the max of your capacity, probably, or tapped. So when I say 20 grassroots advocates, that's not that would be a great outcome, but I do think it would require greater capacity, and this points to how this document is also going to serve as the content for a possible grant application. to send out to increase the capacity, so we might be able to do things like grassroots advocacy training. So that I just wanted to point that out there. Does that make sense?
That may increase my workload.
Well, that's why the staffing part is it's critical there, Jan.
I will say this though, we do have facilitator training coming up a little in a couple of months. It may be a piece that, even though it is jam packed already, that's 5
Yeah.
days of being packed, but it may be something that we can kind of model after the facilitation training that we have,
Mm-hmm.
and pull pieces out of that, and then just add the advocacy piece to that. Not so that not that the training is so long, but we can probably work that out and put something together along that line. So if there's an agency that wants to partner with us, or if there are people who want to partner with us, we can think of that. I will say keep that in mind when we have our conversation next week with the Vera Institute, because they want to do some training around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, something like this could be. That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be Alive and Thrive that provides that training. And we are a network, and if we have partners in our network who can do that, that would be just coordinate with them to get that done. That would be great.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I wanted to point out, if you scroll back up to our goals, our 2020 calendar. So it is August. It says August 2020, and it says Alive and Thrive Director recruits co-chairs for PATs and at-large seats. Chan, you could start recruiting right now.
I plugged it a couple of times during this meeting. And if somebody's watching this video recording, feel free to send me an email, call me, do what you need to do. But we need these people in, because I can't be at all these meetings. So, contact us. You'll probably see that on the video. Our nice video text will probably find some fancy schmancy way to put my contact information in this, as they see that on the video. Our nice video text will probably find some fancy schmancy way to put my contact information in this, as they're editing. So in my mind, I'm imagining that popping up right now. So there we go.
Chandra, we'll have to go back to the notes, which I can look at from the first engagement where everybody went into small groups in the 4 policy. There was an individual, I cannot think of her name right now, but we've got it in the notes, that stepped up and said she'd like to be definitely lead of, and she volunteered herself. She wasn't volunteered by anybody, and I need to go back and pull that. So we do have somebody already on one of the action teams that absolutely stepped up and wants to be a lead.
And just for review, the action teams, we have the juvenile justice one, policing, education, and health and mental health. Just so everyone knows.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
All right. I think this goes over to Mark, and Mark, you work your wonderful editing magic, and then we'll review it as the writing team, and then Chandra, I think, can go to you, and if we want to circulate it any broader, pretty close to final.
Anyone have any final comments about the document or what we're doing, what's going on this meeting? I do want to say to Chiquita, Kathleen, Mark, and Diane, who had to step away for a little bit, but thank you all for the work that you're doing on this document. It looks really, really good. Thank you. I think we did a good job of capturing the voices that we had coming in for the past. I think it's like our 5th civic engagement, 5th or 6th, something like that. But I think you guys did a really good job of capturing those voices and what we've talked about and what our concerns are in this document. So thank you for your work on this and your continued work on this. Mark, Kathleen, Chiquita, did you all have anything that you wanted to add or say before we?
I'm good.
I'm good.
Okay. So if you all pay attention, if you're on our email list, you'll be getting an update on some upcoming things. If you're not on our email list and you want to be included as we send things out, feel free to add your email in the group chat. If you already added your email in the group chat, I'll automatically put it in our email list unless you request differently. Other than that, I would like to say thank you to everyone who came, participated. If you have follow-up, if you look at it a little bit more and have follow-up things that you would like to add, Kathleen, can you put your email in the chat real quick? So if anyone has any questions about this document or any changes that they would like to add at a different time, please feel free to email Kathleen with that. And if there's a question regarding or the discussion, then we can bring it back up in our next meeting. This is a working document, so as we need to make changes, we will. Thank you again for your voices. We need them. And again, invite more people to the platform. And I'm gonna let you all go today if you don't have anything else to add. Ms. Brenda, I see that. We'll get you added. Okay. All right, everyone. All right. Well, thank you so much. Y'all have a great rest of your day. Self-care. Take care of yourselves. And I will see you all later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good day.
Bye,
You
everyone. Be
too.
safe.
Thank you.